Hello, we are the team The Alchemist, conformed by Miranda Barraza, Omar Vargas, and me, Regina Vargas, and we are going to present our solution to problem 1, that is homemade food preservatives.
The problem description is to propose a homemade food preservative able to preserve a variety of foods rich in biomolecules like carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. It should be non-toxic and common in daily life. The design and experiment to determine are time of each food preservation, what properties will be measured to determine this, what properties of the food will change immediately after applying the preservative, and propose the mechanisms of action of the preservative. The considerations are that it will be considered as a functional food preservation if the food can be eaten without health repercussions after the common expiration time is overpassed by 150%. The flavor of the food should not be preserved completely, but the food will not change in excess for it to not be able to be recognized. The food can be cutted if that optimizes the conservation, but not in sizes smaller than 1 centimeter per side. The objective is to propose a homemade food preservative that could be able to preserve a variety of foods rich in different biomolecules like carbohydrates, lipids, or proteins. Specific objects are to develop a mixture or compound that is able to preserve food, also to make a step-by-step process on how to do the mixture or substance, and to calculate an estimated time of the food preservation duration. What causes the degradation of foods? The growth of microorganisms like mold, yeast, and bacteria in foods. The oxidation that something is exposed to oxygen, causing deterioration in fats or vitamins. And the pH of foods can also affect degradation. Bacteria prefers neutral environments than an acidic environment. What are food preservatives? Preservatives are chemical substances used to slow down the deterioration of a food and allow it to be preserved with all its properties for much longer.
Now a little bit about the history. In 1679, Denis Papin invents the steam digester, which cooks food at high pressure and temperature to kill bacteria. In 1809, Nicolas Appert wins the prize for food preserved in glass bottles by prolonged boiling. In 1860, Pasteur demonstrates that microorganisms spoil food and patents the pasteurization of wine to prevent spoilage by acetobacter, which converts ethanol into acetic acid through oxidation. In 1920, Bigelow develops the theory of microbial destruction, and on the 20th century, preservatives appeared, and there are currently more than 5,000 registered substances. The hypothesis is that the use of compounds, inhibitors with properties able to reduce the characteristics necessary for chemical reactions that affect the food quality to occur, can prevent the food degradation. The mixture we propose is based on two main substances, the potassium sorbate and ascorbic acid. Potassium sorbate is a salt of sorbic acid that is mostly used to conserve food. It is an odorless and tasteless salt synthetically produced from sorbic acid and potassium hydroxide. Potassium sorbate prolongs the shelf life of foods by stopping the growth of mold, yeast, and fungi. On the other hand, ascorbic acid is a nutrient that the body needs in small portions, and it is in all fruits and vegetables. Its main purpose is to increase food shelf life and prevent nutrient oxidation. Why this preservative? Well, the mixture between ascorbic acid and potassium sorbate will make most of the food last a longer life without deteriorating easily. The potassium sorbate will react with a small pH and make a preservative that can help with mold and yeast. To achieve this, the acidity of the ascorbic acid will create the perfect environment while lowering the pH. The ascorbic acid will also help with the oxidation of the fruit and other foods because in acidic environments it's harder for the oxidation to happen because oxygen cannot react easily, as well as enzymes required for oxidation work better in a basic environment. The design for experimentation is divided in three groups. The control group will be foods with preservatives or alterations and live on a place at room temperature. The experimental group will be food sprayed with a preservative created with a mixture of potassium sorbate and ascorbic acid, left in the same condition as the control group. And the comparison group will be food with preservatives like canned foods or breads, placed in the same conditions to see the effectiveness of the experimental group against the commercial preservatives. The observations for this experiment need to be considered that the canned foods need to be open to have a more accurate analysis. The experiment should last until the three groups present a condition that make them inedible. And notes will be made every day on the properties of the food like color, smell, shape, and presence of fungus.
In here, we can see that the amounts needed for the mixture are really not that much because, for example, here we use 5 grams of ascorbic acid, which really is a big amount because it is pure ascorbic acid and will not be necessary that amount. But for 5 grams of ascorbic acid, we will need 32 lemons, and it is also supposing that we need 5 grams of ascorbic acid, which really is an exaggeration. And for example, for the potassium sorbate, here it states that we need 10% of mass volume concentration for it to be safe. Uh, and if we do the calculations for 200 milliliters of a solution, that is also exaggerating because 200 milliliters will be a really big amount. We will need only 0.02 grams of potassium sorbate. So here we can see that because the potassium sorbate and the sorbic acid have antimicrobial properties, that will allow the food to be conserved for more time than the normal expiration date of the product. Also, because of the antioxidants, mainly in the ascorbic acid, that will have a positive effect by reducing the oxidation process normal in some foods, for example, in apples when they turn like black. Uh, and also, the low pH will not allow for any microbial being to live, so it will allow for a conservation of the food. So the main advantages are that ascorbic acid is naturally found, for example, in lemons or oranges, and it is also necessary in life. So it will not have any repercussions, even if we accept the recommended amount. And also, the the mixture, if it is diluted to a 10% concentration, it is practically completely safe. We also need to have some precautions because the potassium sorbate can be irritant if you have a direct contact, and obviously both of them can cause a harm if they are in contact with sensible areas, for example, the eyes. And both of them can have some effects if you eat them in big quantities, but they are small problems, for example, diarrhea. So, in conclusion, this mixture effectively is useful to preserve food for a longer period of time than the expiration dates normally states. So, also because the ascorbic acid is naturally found, it will not cause any harm in the body system, and it will effectively preserve all types of food without causing any big change in its properties. And these are the bibliography that was used.